difference is that religious schools, the religious education is based on dogma. Dogma is essence of religion. And dogma is a set of truths that cannot be put in question. This is the difference. At the same time, the religious power is uncontrolled, is out of control, including philosophical control and social control. That is why I think that you know the reflection of one of the famous Dostoevskian characters, Ivan Karamazov. Ivan Karamazov said, if God does not exist, all is possible, including crime.
Yes. There are many explanations.
Excuse me.
Okay.
At the same time, excuse me. At the same time, the critical judgment is not excluded in religion. There is a rational religion, and in the higher institutions of theology,
yes.
The God is debated. And is subjected to reason, because the faith is not only a problem of heart, but
yes.
at the same time a problem of reason.
Yes, no, it's absolutely, it's well worth emphasising again that you can be liberal and religious, and you can be a very rational and reasonable person and be religious. So I don't want to insult religious people by saying that they're all unthinking morons or something like that. It would be ridiculous, because clearly some of the smartest people I know are religious. So there's no insult of that sort intended or implied at all. What I'm suggesting is that there are some religious people, as there are some atheists, there are some religious people who discourage thinking and discourage questioning, particularly when it comes to young people. And they are the people I have a problem with, because I don't think that there is any good reason to suppress or straitjacket thinking in that kind of way. You also said, well, you mentioned that if God is dead, everything is permitted, Dostoevsky quote. And then John Paul Sartre said something similar, apparently. And it's a common theme, isn't it? That without religion, we will end up amoral degenerates. Well, if you actually look at the evidence, it doesn't bear that out.
What evidence?
Well, shall I give you a few examples? There was, Confucianism is a nice example. I mean, Asia was dominated for a very long time by Confucianism, which is, on my understanding, is more or less a secular doctrine. Certainly there's no transcendental God who is laying down right and wrong and we must obey. There's nothing like that. So Confucianism, without the transcendental deity who is laying down right and wrong, and yet there was a very moral society. So Francis Fukuyama is famous, the thinker who famously declared the end of history. He points this out because he's looked at Asia and he says Asia, essentially, in many places, for a long time, secular but highly moral. Morality waxes and wanes, but it's got nothing to do with religion or transcendental gods. Okay. Some other evidence. There's a study done by, in America, people very often say, you can't be good without God, without religion, everything will fall apart. So somebody did a study of developed Western democracies, and they looked at levels of societal health, which included homicide rates, levels of sexually transmitted disease, abortion levels, and so on. And they looked at religiosity. And what they found was that the more religious you were, the more social problems you had. The most religious countries had the most severe problems with homicide, sexually transmitted diseases, and so on. Now that's not to say that religion causes those things, that wasn't the conclusion that was drawn, but it does show that this myth that without religion everything will fall apart it does suggest that it is a myth. The evidence does not bear that out. If you look at the evidence properly, it does not support the view that without religion civilization will eventually fall apart. And there are lots of other arguments I could present too, but I think we need to, whenever people say this, without religion things will fall apart, it needs to be challenged, because it's not true, but because it's endlessly repeated over and over and over again, it's like a mantra. It becomes true, and people don't question it anymore. So in America, it's just part of the culture. Everyone believes it. In certain, well, except for Ben. In Texas. Very many people believe it. People just assume it's true, no one ever questions it, but it's an extremely questionable claim, and it certainly they should give us some evidence would be my challenge, because the evidence doesn't bear it out. In fact, what they do when you point this stuff out to them, they say they have this move which they make, which is very popular in America, which is to say that well, you're living off the cultural capital, the moral capital of religion. So religion ends here, and we're carrying on, but we're still using the fuel in the tank, and eventually the fuel runs out, and then civilization will collapse, is what they say. So they say, it's going to happen, and if it doesn't happen this week, oh, well, it'll be next week, and if it doesn't happen next month, civilization is going to collapse. So it becomes an unfalsifiable hypothesis, because you can't disprove it.
So the tank becomes larger and larger.
Yeah, exactly.
You get more and
it's
more.
Always tomorrow. Civilization ends tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. Yes.
One of the main problems in Romania is that the public schools are in most of cases religious schools, because they have religious symbols on the walls. Mm-hmm. At the religion classes there is a very strong indoctrination, and it's in many cases there are...
Let me finish.
You say.
Yeah.
What you will say.
In many cases the textbooks are very intolerant. Mm-hmm. With other religions and with atheists. Recently the government removed the theory of evolution from the curricula, from the biology curricula. Romania is the only European country which done this. And which is the distinction between a good religious school and a bad religious school? Because you said that you accept some kind of religious schools.
Yes.
But what kind of religious schools you accept, and what do you think about public funds and public schools, which become very religious schools, which promote intolerance and creationism and so on?
Well, obviously, if there are such schools, then I wouldn't be very happy about those schools. The thing about the scale from religious to authoritarianism is that there's not a sharp line between the two things. It's a sliding scale, and schools can be more or less liberal or authoritarian. So it's hard to draw a sharp line and say, this is where it's unacceptable and this is where it's acceptable. But I think maybe what we could do is we could have minimum standards that we expect all schools, certainly all state-funded schools, to meet. And those minimum standards would include, there must be classes run by people without a religious agenda or an atheist agenda, okay, without pushing either, in which children are encouraged to think and question openly, without there being any explicit pressure put on them or any implicit, surreptitious pressure put on them not to ask certain sorts of questions, because it so very often is implicit.